The last golden rays of sunset cast long shadows across the polished granite facade of Meridian Technologies, the tallest building in Seattle's skyline. Rain-washed windows reflected amber light like sheets of fire against the darkening sky. Inside the cavernous main server room on floor 57, the gentle hum of cooling systems pulsed like a mechanical heartbeat, steady and certain. But that certainty was about to shatter. CEO Alexandra Reeves stood motionless before the central command terminal, her tailored charcoal suit immaculate despite the 16-hour day. Her expression frozen in disbelief as red error messages cascaded across the monitors like digital blood. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. How long? She asked, her voice cutting through the silence, calm yet razor-edged. 17 minutes and counting, replied Marcus Chen, head of cybersecurity, his fingers dancing frantically across 3 keyboards. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the room's precisely controlled temperature. The defense algorithms are failing sequentially. Something's bypassing every firewall we've built. Around them, 24 engineers worked with desperate intensity, their faces bathed in the eerie glow of emergency lighting. The Meridian building housed the most advanced quantum security system in the private sector, protecting financial data for 37% of Fortune 500 companies. A system Alex had personally overseen from conception to implementation. A system that had never failed until tonight. System status? Alex demanded, her steel-gray eyes never leaving the central display where thousands of lines of code unfurled. Like digital ivy, some highlighted in alarming crimson. Critical, ma'am. Primary quantum encryption failing. Backup protocols attempting to engage, but something's blocking the authentication sequence. Marcus's voice cracked slightly. We've never seen anything like this. Alex straightened her spine, the diamond-sharp edges of her short black hair catching the emergency lights. She had built Meridian from a struggling tech startup into a $40 billion security giant in just 11 years. Tonight could unravel everything: the Pentagon contracts, the international banking partnerships, the reputation that had made her both feared and respected across Silicon Valley. Isolate the core system. Shut down all external connections. We've tried. Marcus's normally composed demeanor cracked. Whatever's in our system is 10 steps ahead, like it knows our architecture. Intimately. Alex's hand tightened around her platinum stylus. Tomorrow morning, she was scheduled to announce Meridian's revolutionary government security contract, a $1.20 billion deal that would transform the company from corporate powerhouse to essential national infrastructure. The contract was in her private safe upstairs, waiting for the morning press conference. Now the entire system was collapsing around her. We have 40 minutes before this goes public, she said. Options. The room fell silent. No one dared to meet her gaze. Ma'am, said a junior engineer whose name Alex couldn't recall, we might need to consider a complete system purge and rebuild from scratch. Unacceptable. That's a 3-day process minimum. Alex's voice was like winter frost. Find another way. The door at the far end of the server room hissed open. A figure appeared, pushing a wheeled cleaning cart. The janitor was older, perhaps in his late 50s, with broad shoulders slightly stooped from years of labor. His face was weathered, with deep lines around eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Calm, assessing, and oddly familiar to Alex, though she couldn't place why. Sir, you can't be in here, called one of the security officers stationed by the door. This is a level 5 restricted area. The janitor nodded politely but continued forward. Just need to check the recycling bins. Won't take but a minute. His voice carried a soft southern drawl, unrushed despite the palpable tension in the room. Alex was about to order him removed when she noticed something strange. The janitor wasn't looking at the bins. His eyes were fixed on the central display. reading the error messages with focused intensity. "You need to leave now," Alex said, stepping toward him. "Security protocol. Your system's under attack from the inside." The janitor interrupted, still studying the screens. "Not an external breach. Someone reprogrammed your quantum authentication sequence." He gestured toward a specific section of code. "See that pattern? It's a recursive override buried in your latest security patch." The room went utterly silent. Every face turned toward the man in the faded gray maintenance uniform, with Mike embroidered in simple block letters on the breast pocket. Marcus scoffed. "That's impossible. The patch was written in-house by our most trusted engineers and underwent 3 independent security reviews." The janitor Mike shrugged. "Check the initialization module. Your system isn't crashing. It's being methodically dismantled." Something in his tone made Alex pause. She turned to Marcus. "Do it." Marcus hesitated, then typed a rapid sequence of commands. The screen shifted, displaying the core initialization module, a section of code that hadn't been examined because it wasn't part of the active system crash. Alex leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as she recognized unfamiliar lines embedded within the familiar architecture. "What the hell?" Marcus whispered. Mike stepped closer, his movements unhurried. "Your quantum encryption is being redirected through a shadow channel. Each time you try to fix it, you're actually accelerating the breakdown." "And how exactly would a janitor know that?" Alex asked, her voice soft but dangerous. Mike met her gaze directly. In the harsh emergency lighting, his eyes were a startling blue clear, intelligent and unflinching. "Because I've seen this attack signature before." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. "If you'll allow me, I can help." The security officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, I strongly advise against." "Let him try," Alex cut in, making a decision that defied every security protocol she'd established. "We've got nothing to lose at this point." The room collectively held its breath as Mike approached the central terminal. Marcus reluctantly slid aside, watching with naked skepticism as the janitor inserted the drive and began typing. His fingers moved with surprising speed and precision, not the hesitant pecking of someone unfamiliar with advanced systems, but the fluid movements of an expert. Lines of custom code flowed across the screen, elegant in their simplicity. Not the bloated, complex algorithms Meridian's engineers favored, but lean, almost military in their efficiency. Alex watched, transfixed, as the red error messages began to recede, replaced by stable blue diagnostic screens. "What are you doing?" Marcus demanded. "Creating a containment field around the compromised modules," Mike explained without looking up. "Your system isn't beyond saving, but you need to isolate the infiltration before a quantum architecture." 3 minutes passed in tense silence. Then 5. At the 7-minute mark, the emergency lights shut off as the main systems came back online. The central display stabilized, showing all critical systems returning to normal operation. "It's working," whispered one of the junior engineers, disbelief evident in her voice. Mike stepped back from the terminal, removing his USB drive and pocketing it with the casual motion of someone completing a routine task. "You should run a full diagnostic, but the immediate threat is contained." Alex stared at him, reassessing everything about the unassuming man before her. The slightly stooped posture now seemed at odds with the confidence and precision he'd just demonstrated. The weathered hands that had moved across the keyboard with such expertise didn't belong to someone who spent their days emptying trash bins. "Who are you?" she asked directly. Mike offered a small, tight smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Just the night janitor, ma'am." "No janitor could have done what you just did," Alex countered. "Those were military-grade containment protocols." Something flickered across Mike's face, a shadow of recognition, perhaps, or wariness. Sometimes people are more than what their uniform suggests. He turned to leave, reaching for his abandoned cleaning cart. "Wait," Alex called. "I need to understand. What just happened here?" Mike paused but didn't turn back. "Your system was attacked from within. Someone who knows your architecture intimately placed that code. You might want to look into who had access to the latest security patch." His voice had changed subtly, taking on a harder edge. "Now if you'll excuse me, I have floors to mop." As he wheeled his cart toward the exit, Alex noticed something she'd missed before, the slight unevenness in his gait, barely perceptible but unmistakable to her trained eye, the kind of adjustment made by someone with a prosthetic limb. "Security, ensure, mister." She glanced at his name tag again. "Mike has full access to this building whenever he needs it. And I want his employee file on my desk in the morning." The janitor disappeared through the sliding doors, leaving behind a room full of baffled engineers and one deeply intrigued CEO. The system had stabilized, the crisis averted. But Alex couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just encountered a puzzle, far more complex than the system breach. She turned to Marcus. "I want to know everything about that man by morning, and initiate a complete review of everyone who touched our latest security patch." Her voice was quiet but carried an unmistakable command. "Someone tried to sabotage us from the inside, and I want to know who." As the team scrambled to follow her orders, Alex's gaze lingered on the door through which the janitor had exited. His words echoed in her mind. "Sometimes people are more than what their uniform suggests." She had the distinct feeling she'd just met someone who embodied that truth more completely than she could yet understand. The silver pre-dawn light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Alex's corner office, casting long shadows across the polished mahogany desk where she sat reviewing personnel files. She hadn't left the building all night. The system was stable now, humming with renewed efficiency after Mike's intervention. But questions multiplied in her mind like fractals, each answer spawning more mysteries. The file open on her tablet offered frustratingly little. Michael Sullivan, age 58, employed through Sentinel Cleaning Services, a contractor that handled maintenance for several downtown Seattle skyscrapers. Former military U.S. Army, though the specific details were redacted from the civilian employment record. No social media presence, minimal digital footprint, and employed at Meridian for just under 3 months. The photograph showed the same weathered face she'd seen last night, eyes direct and unsmiling, revealing nothing. "This can't be everything," Alex muttered, reaching for her coffee. The cup was empty, the fourth she'd drained since midnight. Her private line buzzed. "Ms. Reeves, Director Williams from the DOT is on the line." Her assistant's voice announced. Alex straightened, smoothing her rumpled shirt. Even after an all-nighter, certain standards had to be maintained. "Put him through." "Alexandra." Williams's voice filled the room, crisp and formal. "I'm calling about today's contract signing. My team will arrive at 1,100 hours. Everything is proceeding as planned, Director," she replied smoothly, betraying nothing of the night's crisis. "The system is fully operational and secure." "Glad to hear it. There've been whispers about potential security concerns with quantum systems like yours. I'd hate to think Meridian might be vulnerable." Alex's spine stiffened. The timing of the comment was too precise to be coincidental. "I can assure you, Director, Meridian's architecture remains the most secure in the private sector. Any ... anomalies have been thoroughly addressed." A pause on the line. "Good, very good. We'll see you at 11. The line went dead. Alex sat, motionless, mind racing. How had Williams known about the breach? The information had been contained within the building. Unless ... A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Marcus Chun entered, his normally immaculate appearance showing signs of the same sleepless night that Alex had endured. "You found something," she stated, noting the tension in his posture. "2 things, actually." Marcus placed a tablet on her desk. "First, I traced the origin of the attack code. It came from an authorized terminal on the 48th floor, the executive level. Timestamp shows the implementation occurred at 2:17 p.m. yesterday, when most of the C-suite was in the quarterly planning meeting. Alex's eyes narrowed. Who wasn't in that meeting? Only 3 executives were absent. You were at lunch with the mayor. Dr. Farouk was at his daughter's graduation, and James Harrington, Alex finished. Our chief security officer was conspicuously missing from a security briefing. Marcus nodded grimly, claimed he had food poisoning. But there's more. I did a deep dive into our janitor friend. His employment record with Sentinel is legitimate, but suspiciously thin, so I called in a favor from a friend at the Pentagon. He swiped to a new document on the tablet. This one bore military classification markers, most sections heavily redacted. But the photograph was unmistakably a younger version of Mike. Michael Sullivan, former Army Delta Force, specialized in counter-cyber warfare, decorated twice for classified operations. Honorable discharge 8 years ago following IED incident in Afghanistan that cost him his left leg below the knee. Alex absorbed this silently, pieces clicking into place. The slight limp, the military-grade containment protocols, the immediate recognition of an attack signature. After his discharge, he worked for the NSA's Quantum Defense Division for 3 years. Marcus continued. Then he vanishes from official records, until he mysteriously resurfaces as a janitor in our building 3 months ago. Right when we began final implementation of the DOD security system, Alex murmured. That's not coincidence. There's one more thing. Marcus hesitated. During the system recovery last night, I noticed an anomaly. The janitor Sullivan didn't just contain the attack. He installed something else. A dormant program buried so deep in the architecture I almost missed it. Alex's blood chilled. A backdoor? I don't think so. Its signature doesn't match any known espionage tools. It looks more like ... a monitoring system. Watching for specific patterns within our network. Watching for what? That's just it, I don't know. Marcus ran a hand through his disheveled hair. The code is unlike anything I've seen. Military. Grade, possibly classified. I can't decipher its purpose without triggering it. Alex stood, decision made. Find him, now, and James Harrington too. I want him in my office within the hour. Sullivan wasn't scheduled to work today. And he's not answering the phone number on file. Then find where he lives. Alex's voice hardened. I don't care if. You have to wake every employee at Sentinel Cleaning Services. Get me Michael Sullivan. Marcus nodded and left. Alex turned to the window, watching the city emerge from darkness. Seattle spread below her, glass and steel monuments to technology, and progress gleaming in the dawnlight. Somewhere out there was a former Delta Force operative who had saved her company and possibly planted something in its systems. A man who chose to mop floors in the building that housed the country's most advanced quantum security architecture. Nothing about this made sense, and Alexandra Reeves hated puzzles she couldn't solve. The soft ping of her secure messaging system drew her attention. A text from an unknown number. Check the sub-basement server archive. Bring no one. Alex stared at the message. The sub-basement housed decommissioned servers, a digital graveyard of outdated technology. Few people even remembered it existed. Beneath the gleaming floors of Meridian's headquarters, security protocol dictated she alert her team, bring armed guards. But instinct, the same instinct that had built a tech empire from nothing, told her this was a thread she needed to follow alone. 20 minutes later, Alex stepped out of the service elevator into the cavernous sub-basement. The air was cooler. Here, heavy with the metallic scent of old electronics and dust. Motion-sensing lights flickered on as she moved forward, illuminating rows of server racks like silent sentinels in the gloom. I wasn't sure you'd come alone. Alex turned sharply. Mike Sullivan emerged from between 2 server stacks. He'd abandoned the janitor's uniform for dark jeans and a simple gray Henley that did nothing to disguise his military bearing. In this light, with his posture straight and purpose evident, he seemed taller, more formidable. "You saved my system, then compromised it," Alex stated coldly. "I want to know why." "I didn't compromise your system, I protected it." Sullivan's voice was calm, measured. "And not from what you think. Enlighten me." Sullivan gestured toward the back of the room. "Walk with me." Against better judgment, Alex followed. They passed rows of outdated servers until reaching a section that appeared undisturbed for years. Sullivan knelt with fluid grace despite his prosthetic leg and removed a dusty access panel, revealing a hidden terminal. "This is an air-gapped system I installed when I started working here," he explained, powering it on. "What I'm about to show you doesn't leave this room." "You've been spying on my company," Alex accused. Sullivan's eyes met hers, startlingly direct. "No, Ms. Reeves, I've been protecting it from someone who has." The screen flickered to life, displaying a complex network diagram of Meridian system architecture. Red lines traced through specific nodes and visible pathways that shouldn't exist. "These are backdoors," Sullivan explained. "Sophisticated ones, installed over the past 18 months. They're designed to appear as standard security protocols, but they allow remote access to your quantum encryption keys." Alex studied the diagram, professional outrage mounting. "Who? That's the billion-dollar question." Sullivan tapped several keys, bringing up a series of transmission logs. The data flows to 3 different endpoints. One is a server in Arlington, Virginia, another in Fort Meade, Maryland. "The Pentagon and NSA," Alex whispered, the implications staggering. "The third is more interesting," Sullivan continued. "A private server farm owned by a shell company that, if you follow the paper trail long enough, connects to Tessellate Defense Systems, our biggest competitor." Alex's mind raced. "James Harrington worked for Tessellate before I hired him 4 years ago." Sullivan nodded. "Yesterday's attack wasn't meant to destroy your system. It was meant to expose these backdoors before your DOD contract signing. Someone got nervous about what might be discovered once the Pentagon's own security team started their final audit." "And the program you installed during the recovery?" "A containment protocol. It creates a false positive environment for the backdoors, making them think they're still functioning while actually feeding them carefully constructed data." Alex's analytical mind processed this, identifying the elegant solution. "So whoever is spying thinks they're still getting valid information." "Exactly, but we're running out of time." Sullivan checked his watch. "Your signing ceremony is in 5 hours. Once those papers are finalized, the real Pentagon security team will integrate with your systems. They'll discover the back doors. And everything points to you knowingly selling compromised technology to the U.S. government. That's absurd." "I had no knowledge. Doesn't matter. The evidence has been carefully constructed to suggest otherwise." Sullivan's eyes held hers. "Someone wants to destroy Meridian, Ms. Reeves, and they've spent years setting you up to take the fall." Alex absorbed this, calculating angles, assessing risks with the same precision that had made her a technological visionary. "Why are you helping me? What's your stake in this?" Something flickered across Sullivan's weathered face, a brief crack in the professional mask. "Let's just say I recognize the pattern. I've seen good people framed before. Careers and lives destroyed by the same playbook." Alex sensed there was much more to that statement, but she recognized deflection when she heard it. "What do you propose?" "We do? We have 5 hours to identify who placed those backdoors, trace the real beneficiaries, and prepare irrefutable evidence for the Pentagon." Sullivan straightened. "I need full access to your executive security protocols and unquestioned authority to investigate anyone in your organization." "You're asking for the keys to the kingdom," Alex said carefully. Why should I trust you, a man who infiltrated my company under false pretenses? Sullivan didn't flinch. Because I could have let your system burn last night. I could have walked away and watched Meridian Technologies collapse under the weight of its own compromised architecture. Instead, I'm standing in a basement with you, showing you exactly how vulnerable you are. Their eyes locked in silent assessment, two tacticians recognizing in each other a kindred strategic mind. One condition, Alex finally said. You don't work alone. I'm with you every step of the way. Sullivan considered this, then nodded once. Deal, but we start with James Harrington. If he's behind this, he already knows I intervened last night. He'll be covering his tracks or preparing to run. Harrington was supposed to be in my office 10 minutes ago, Alex replied. He never showed up. The executive elevator hummed softly as it ascended toward the 48th floor. Alex stood beside Sullivan. Both silent, minds racing in parallel. The polished steel walls reflected their contrasting figures. Alex in her tailored business attire that screamed authority. Sullivan in simple clothes that allowed him to blend into backgrounds, become invisible among the machinery of corporate life. Tell me about Delta Force, Alex said suddenly, breaking the silence. The real story, not the redacted version. Sullivan's eyes remained fixed on the ascending floor numbers. That's not relevant to our current situation. I disagree. I'm trusting you with the future of my company. I need to know who I'm trusting. The elevator slowed as it approached their destination. Sullivan's reflection in the polished doors showed no emotion, but something in his posture shifted almost imperceptibly. I specialized in identifying vulnerabilities in supposedly secure systems, he finally said. Sometimes that meant digital infrastructure, sometimes physical, sometimes people. You were an infiltration specialist. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. The term we used was gray man, someone who could walk into any environment and become part of the background. Invisible until the moment they needed to be seen. The doors slid open, revealing the hushed luxury of Meridian's executive floor. Sullivan stepped out first, his eyes automatically scanning the environment exits. Cameras, potential threats, a habit ingrained through years of training and survival. James Harrington's office is the third door on the right, Alex said quietly. His assistant should be at the front desk. But the assistant's desk was empty. The elegant reception area stood silent, the morning's first light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Sullivan moved forward with measured steps, his slight limp almost undetectable. He gestured for Alex to stay back as he approached. Harrington's office door closed, but not fully latched. Sullivan exchanged a glance with Alex, then gently pushed the door open. The office was immaculate modern furnishings in brushed steel and black leather. Abstract art on the walls, a desk of polished black granite. Everything in perfect order, except for the empty chair and the computer screen flashing with a deletion progress bar. 98% complete. He's wiping his system, Alex said, moving swiftly to the desk. Sullivan was already there, fingers flying across the keyboard, trying to halt the process. Too late. This is a military-grade erasure protocol. Whatever was on this drive is gone. Alex activated her wrist communicator. Security, this is Reeves, full lockdown. No one enters or exits the building without my direct authorization. And find James Harrington immediately. Yes, ma'am, came the prompt reply. Should we alert local authorities? Alex hesitated, looking to Sullivan, who gave a subtle shake of his head. Not yet, she replied. This is an internal security matter for now. Just find Harrington. She ended the communication and turned to Sullivan, who was examining the office with methodical precision, opening drawers, checking under the desk, scanning bookshelves. He knew we were coming, Sullivan said. The system wipe was initiated. Remotely, probably the moment Marcus started asking questions about yesterday's attack. How much damage could he have done? Depends on his access level. As CSO, he had near-complete system access. Only my credentials and those of our chief technology officer ranked higher. Alex moved to the window, staring out at the Seattle skyline bathed in morning light. I vetted him personally 4 years ago. Impeccable credentials, security clearance, technical expertise, everything checked out. Sullivan knelt beside a small trash can, retrieving a crumpled piece of paper. He carefully smoothed it out, revealing a handwritten sequence of numbers and letters. Coordinates, he murmured, pulling out his phone and entering the sequence. A map appeared, showing a location in the Cascade Mountains, about 2 hours east of Seattle. Remote area. Limited access roads. What would Harrington want there? Before Sullivan could answer, Alex's communicator buzzed. Ms. Reeves, we've located Mr. Harrington's vehicle, leaving the executive parking garage at 5:17 a.m. He's not in the building. He's running, Sullivan said quietly. The question is whether he's running from us or from whoever he was working for. Alex's mind raced through implications, calculations, contingencies. We need to move fast. The Dodd representatives will be here in less than 4 hours. If those back doors are discovered without context, you'll be facing federal charges for attempting to sell compromised systems to the government. Sullivan pocketed the coordinates. We need to track Harrington and secure evidence of who he was really working for. I'll take my private helicopter. We can reach those coordinates. In 30 minutes, Sullivan raised an eyebrow. You pilot? Former Air Force, Alex replied with the faintest smile. Before I built quantum security systems, I flew combat rescue missions in Afghanistan. We might have crossed paths without knowing it. Something shifted in Sullivan's assessment of her respect, deepening as another layer of her carefully constructed public image peeled away. There's something else we need to do first, he said. Something that can't wait. 20 minutes later, they stood in Alex's private server room, a space so secure that even Marcus Chun needed special authorization to enter. Sullivan connected his specialized equipment to the main console while Alex provided the necessary authentication codes. What exactly are we doing? She asked, watching as complex algorithms scrolled across the screen. Creating a time-stamped evidence package, Sullivan explained. Everything I've found on the back doors, the data transmission logs, Harrington's system wipe, all of it cryptographically sealed with military-grade encryption and filed with a third party who specializes in digital escrow. Insurance, Alex realized. Exactly. If something happens to us, this evidence package will automatically release to multiple agencies after a predetermined time. Whoever's behind this will know they can't simply eliminate us and bury the evidence. Alex watched him work, noting the precision of his movements, the focus in his eyes. This was a man accustomed to calculating risks where the stakes were life and death, not quarterly profits. In your professional assessment, she said carefully, what are odds? Sullivan didn't look up from his work. Of surviving? Or of saving your company? Both. He paused then, considering her question with the gravity it deserved. If Harrington is working alone, our odds are excellent. If he's part of something larger, as I suspect, significantly lower. You think the government is involved? I think elements within certain agencies might be. The backdoor signatures match classified protocols I've seen before. His voice carried the weight of personal experience. There's a difference between official government operations and what happens in the shadows where accountability disappears. The implications hung heavy between them, conspiracy at the highest levels, powers beyond what even Meridian's considerable resources could easily combat. Done, Sullivan announced, disconnecting his equipment. Now we can pursue Harrington. As they moved toward the door, Alex's phone chimed with an incoming message. She glanced at the screen and froze. What is it? Sullivan asked, instantly alert. It's from Marcus. Security found something in the surveillance archives. She turned the screen so Sullivan could see the image, a high-resolution still from a security camera showing James Harrington in deep conversation with a man whose face was partially obscured. When was this taken? 3 days ago. 47th floor service corridor. Alex zoomed in on the image. Do you recognize him? Sullivan studied the partially visible face, his expression hardening almost imperceptibly. Yes, the single word carried such weight that Alex knew immediately they'd found something significant. Who is he? Thomas Blackwood, former director of the NSA Special Collections Service. Officially retired 5 years ago, and unofficially? He works as a consultant for private military contractors with government connections. His specialty is acquiring sensitive technologies through whatever means necessary. Sullivan's jaw tightened. He was my superior officer before I left government service. Alex caught the hesitation, filed it away for later examination. Is he dangerous? Extremely. Not because he's violent, though he can be when necessary, but because he's methodical. He doesn't make mistakes, and he ensures he always has deniability. Alex moved to her secure terminal, fingers flying across the keyboard. I'm accessing Harrington's communication logs from the past 6 months. Sullivan joined her, watching. As she navigated through encrypted channels few people knew existed within Meridian systems. You built in backdoors of your own, he observed without judgment. I built this company from nothing, Mr. Sullivan. Trust is valuable, but verification is essential. The screen filled with data meeting schedules, communications, access logs. There, Harrington met with someone identified only as TB 7 times in the past 4 months. Always off-site, always away from digital surveillance. Blackwood, Sullivan confirmed. Which means this goes beyond industrial espionage. If Blackwood is involved, there's a bigger play happening. What would the NSA want with my quantum encryption? Systems? They already have access to similar technology. Sullivan's expression grew distant, calculating. Not similar. Yours has something unique, the adaptive learning protocol, that allows it to evolve defenses against unknown threats. That's why the Pentagon wants it. That's also why others might want to control or compromise it. Understanding dawned on Alex's face. They don't want to steal it. They want to ensure they maintain access even after it's deployed across government systems. Precisely. A backdoor into the world's most advanced security architecture would be worth billions, not just in money, but in power. Sullivan checked his watch. We're running out of time. That helicopter you mentioned? On the roof. But if Blackwood is involved, Harrington might be a decoy. Those coordinates could be leading us into a trap. Sullivan nodded grimly. Almost certainly. But right now, Harrington is our only lead. And sometimes the only way past a trap is through it. Alex gathered her secure tablet and encryption key. I designed Meridian systems to be unbreakable. I staked my reputation, my entire life's work on that promise. No system is unbreakable, Sullivan said quietly. That's the first rule of security. The question is whether you built yours well enough that breaking it costs more than it's worth. Their eyes met in silent understanding, two specialists in their respective fields, recognizing in each other a kindred dedication to excellence. Without another word, they moved toward the elevator that would take them to the roof, and into a confrontation with forces that had been working from the shadows to unravel everything Alex had built. The sleek black helicopter cut through wisps of morning fog as it skimmed over the emerald canopy of the Cascade Mountains. Alex handled the controls with practiced precision, the machine responding to her touch like an extension of her body. Sullivan sat beside her in the co-pilot's seat, studying topographical maps on a rugged tablet. The coordinates point to a clearing near this ridgeline, he said, voice calm despite the turbulence buffeting the aircraft. Satellite imagery shows what appears to be a hunting cabin, but the thermal signature suggests more sophisticated infrastructure underneath. Alex adjusted their heading slightly, compensating for a crosswind. A safe house? Or a forward operating base? This area is remote enough to avoid civilian attention, but accessible enough for rapid deployment. Below them, the dense forest occasionally broke to reveal rocky outcroppings and the silver ribbons of mountain streams. Beautiful country and perfect for those who didn't want to be found. We should approach from the east, Sullivan continued. The ridgeline will provide cover for our approach. Land half a mile out and proceed on foot. Alex raised an eyebrow. We're assuming hostiles? Always assume hostiles until proven otherwise. The edge in his voice wasn't fear, it was experience, hard-won and etched into his instincts. Blackwood doesn't take chances. If Harrington fled to these coordinates, it wasn't random. She nodded, banking the helicopter toward a small clearing tucked against the eastern slope. I've got a weapons locker on board. Nothing military grade, but enough to discourage unwanted attention. Sullivan studied her with newfound appreciation. You're not what I expected from a tech CEO. And you're not what I expected from a janitor, Alex replied with the ghost of a smile. We all have our covers, Mr. Sullivan. The helicopter descended into the clearing, rotors whipping the tall grass into frenzied waves. Alex executed a textbook. Landing, powering down with practiced efficiency. Within minutes, they had secured the aircraft and retrieved a small arsenal from the hidden compartment. A 9mm pistol for Alex, a compact assault rifle for Sullivan, and communications equipment for both. Stay behind me, maintain 10-meter separation, and move only when I signal, Sullivan instructed as they prepared to move out. The janitor had completely vanished now, replaced by the Delta Force operative, every movement economical, eyes constantly scanning, voice quiet but commanding. Alex checked her weapon with practiced hands. I've been in combat zones before, Sullivan. I know the protocols. He nodded once, acknowledging her capability without wasting words. They moved into the tree line, advancing through the forest with careful precision. Sullivan led, navigating by instinct and training, while Alex followed, covering their rear approach. The forest was alive with morning sounds, birds calling, branches swaying in the gentle breeze, the occasional rustle of small animals in the underbrush. But as they approached the coordinates, an unnatural silence descended, as if the forest itself sensed danger. Sullivan raised his fist, the universal signal to halt. He dropped to a crouch, gesturing for Alex to do the same. A head barely visible. Through the trees stood a rustic cabin constructed of rough-hewn logs. Solar panels glinted on the roof, an incongruous touch of modern technology amid the rustic setting. 2 heat signatures inside, Sullivan whispered, checking a compact thermal scanner. 1 moving, 1 stationary. Harrington? Alex asked. Voice equally low, can't confirm, but someone's home. He studied the cabin's layout, identifying potential entry points, lines of sight, defensive positions. Cover the rear exit. I'll approach from the front. If anyone runs, they'll head downslope, toward that stream bed. Alex nodded, moving silently through the underbrush to circle behind the cabin. Years of military training returned to her muscle memory, the controlled breathing, the careful foot placement, the heightened awareness of every sound and movement. She reached position just as Sullivan approached the front entrance, his weapon at the ready but not raised, prepared, but not threatening. He knocked firmly on the wooden door. Silence. Then the sound of hurried movement inside. Harrington, Sullivan called, voice carrying authority. We know you're in there. We need to talk. More sounds of frantic activity. Alex tensed, readying herself for someone to burst through the rear door. Sullivan tried again. James, we're not here to harm you. We know about Blackwood. We know about the back doors. Right now we just want information. The cabin door cracked. Open an inch, then wider. James Harrington stood in the doorway, but not the polished executive Alex had known for 4 years. This man was disheveled, his expensive shirt wrinkled and stained, his face pale with dark circles under his eyes. He clutched a handgun, but his grip was amateur, his hand visibly trembling. "How did you find me?" he asked, voice cracking. "You left coordinates in your trash," Sullivan replied evenly. "Not very thorough for a chief security officer." Harrington laughed a hollow, desperate sound. "I wanted to be found. By the right people." His eyes darted past Sullivan, scanning the trees. "Is she with you, Reeves?" "I'm here, James." Alex emerged from her position, keeping her weapon lowered but ready. "We need answers." Harrington's shoulders slumped with what almost looked like relief. He stepped back, gesturing them inside. "You have no idea what you've walked into." The cabin's interior belied its rustic exterior. Advanced communications equipment lined one wall. Multiple monitors displayed security feeds from the surrounding forest. A high-end laptop sat open on a table, connected to an external hard drive. And on the floor, motionless, lay a man in tactical gear, a small pool of blood spreading beneath his head. "He found me first," Harrington explained, voice distant. "One of Blackwood's cleaners. He wasn't expecting me to be armed." Sullivan moved to the body, checking for vital signs. "Dead. Single gunshot, close range." He looked up at Harrington. "When?" 20 minutes ago. I was preparing to move when you arrived." Harrington sank into a chair, the gun dangling loosely from his fingers. Sullivan smoothly relieved him of the weapon, checking it before securing it in his own waistband. "Start talking, James," Alex said, her voice hard despite the shock of seeing her former colleague in this state. "Why did you compromise my systems? Who are you working for?" Harrington's laugh held an edge of hysteria. "Who am I working for? That's complicated. Originally Tessellate Defense, yes. They recruited me to join Meridian, specifically to gain access to your quantum architecture." "Industrial espionage," Alex said coldly. "That's what I thought too, at first." Harrington rubbed his face, but it went deeper. 6 months after I started, I was approached by Thomas Blackwood. He explained that my work for Tessellate was actually serving government interests, specifically a classified NS, a program called Quantum Bridge. Sullivan tensed visibly at the mention of the program name. Alex caught the reaction, filing it away. "What is Quantum Bridge?" she demanded. "A backdoor program designed to ensure government access to all next-generation encryption systems, regardless of who builds or operates them." Harrington gestured to the monitors. "Officially, it doesn't exist. Unofficially, it's been operating for years, compelling or coercing private companies to include hidden access points in their security architecture." "And you agreed to this?" Alex's voice dripped with disgust. "They made it clear refusal wasn't an option. National security, greater good, all the usual justifications." Harrington's eyes met hers. "I was a patriot once, Alex. I believed I was serving my country." "What changed?" Sullivan asked, still monitoring the security feeds. "I discovered Quantum Bridge wasn't just about government oversight. Blackwood's been selling access to the highest bidders, foreign intelligence services, criminal organizations, corporate competitors. The backdoors I installed in Meridian systems have been monetized beyond anything I imagined." Alex felt physically ill. The implications were staggering: her life's work, her promise of unbreakable security, all compromised from within. "That's why you triggered the system crash yesterday," she realized. "You were trying to expose the backdoors before the Dodd contract was signed." Harrington nodded. "Blackwood's people caught me making unauthorized changes. They locked me out of my own code. I had to force a system-wide vulnerability to bring the backdoors to light." He looked at Sullivan with newfound curiosity. "Then you showed up and contained everything. Who are you really?" Someone who's seen Quantum Bridge from the inside, Sullivan replied quietly. And what it does to people who try to expose it. Understanding dawned on Harrington's face. You're Michael Sullivan, the ENSA whistleblower who disappeared 3 years ago. They said you died in a boating accident in the Chesapeake. Alex turned to Sullivan, pieces clicking into place. That's why you were working as a janitor at Meridian. You were hunting Quantum Bridge. Sullivan's expression remained impassive, but something in his eyes confirmed their suspicions. We need to move. That operative wasn't working alone. Blackwood always sends teams of at least 3. The evidence is here, Harrington said, gesturing to the laptop and external drive. Everything I could gather on Quantum Bridge, the back door. Architectures, the money trails, the list of compromised systems. It's all there, encrypted with a key only I know. Gather what you need, Sullivan ordered. We leave in 2 minutes. As Harrington hurriedly collected the hard drive and several memory sticks, Alex moved closer to Sullivan. You knew about this. All along, she said quietly. That's why you were at Meridian. I've been tracking Quantum Bridge for 3 years, he admitted. Following the digital breadcrumbs, working as maintenance staff in various tech companies to gain physical access to their systems. Meridian was my 12th infiltration. Why not go public? Take what you knew to the press? Without irrefutable proof, I'd be labeled a conspiracy theorist at best, a traitor at worst. His eyes met hers. I needed access to an actively compromised system to document the backdoors in real time. Your company provided that opportunity. Before Alex could respond, one of the security monitors flashed red. Sullivan moved instantly to the screen, examining the alert. Perimeter breach, western approach. 3 figures, tactical gear. He turned to Harrington. Is there another way out? Tunnel system, under the floorboards in the bathroom. Leads to an exit point 400 meters east. Sullivan nodded. Go, now both of you. What about you? Alex demanded. I'll create a diversion. Buy you time to reach the helicopter. His voice left no room for argument. Get that evidence to safety. It's bigger than any of us now. Harrington was already moving the rug in the small bathroom, revealing a trapdoor. Alex hesitated, torn between military discipline and something else, a reluctance to leave Sullivan behind. That wasn't a request, Ms. Reeves, Sullivan said firmly. This is what I do. Their eyes locked for a moment, professional respect, mixed with something neither had time to acknowledge. Then Alex nodded once, following Harrington into the darkness below. The last thing she saw before the trapdoor closed was Sullivan positioning himself by the window, rifle ready, face set with the calm determination of a man who had faced impossible odds before, and somehow lived to tell about it. The underground tunnel was cramped and damp, forcing Alex and Harrington to move in. Hunched position. The air hung heavy with the scent of earth and whetstone. Only the dim glow of Harrington's tactical flashlight illuminated their path forward. Sullivan's going to get himself killed, Harrington whispered as they navigated a particularly narrow section. He knows what he's doing, Alex replied, though concern tightened her chest. Above them, muffled by earth and distance, came the distinctive crack of gunfire, 2 different weapons exchanging shots. You don't understand. Blackwood's people aren't ordinary mercenaries. They're ghost operatives, completely off books. If they capture Sullivan, he'll disappear permanently. Then we better make sure his sacrifice means something. Alex's voice hardened. How much further? 50 meters to the exit point. It emerges in a natural rock formation that provides good cover. Harrington clutched the hard drive containing the Quantum Bridge evidence against his chest like a lifeline. Once we're out, it's about a 1/4 mile to your helicopter, but we'll be exposed for part of it. More gunfire echoed from above, followed by a dull thump that might have been an explosion. Alex tried to focus on the mission rather than what might be happening to Sullivan. They reached the tunnel exit, a narrow vertical shaft with metal rungs embedded in the stone. Harrington went first, pushing aside the camouflaged covering and scanning the area before signaling for Alex to follow. She emerged into the fresh mountain air, immediately assessing their surroundings with military precision. They were in a small ravine, sheltered by a natural outcropping of weathered granite. Pine trees provided additional cover, their branches swaying gently in the morning breeze. The helicopter waited beyond a stretch of open ground that offered no protection whatsoever. "We'll need to time this perfectly," Alex murmured, studying the terrain. "Wait for my signal, then run straight for the aircraft. Don't stop, don't look back." Harrington nodded, his face pale but determined. They crouched in silence, watching and listening for any sign of pursuit. Minutes stretched like hours, the only sounds being the rustle of wind through pine needles and the distant call of birds, preparing and narrating. This type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Then, from the direction of the cabin, a final burst of gunfire, followed by complete silence. Alex felt her stomach tighten. Either Sullivan had neutralized the threat, or she pushed the thought aside. "Now," she whispered, and they broke cover. They sprinted across the open ground, Harrington struggling to keep pace with Alex's athletic stride. 50 meters, 30, 20. The helicopter loomed larger with each step, its black surface gleaming in the morning sun. They were 10 meters from safety when the first shot rang out, kicking up dirt at Harrington's feet. He stumbled but kept moving. "Go," Alex commanded, dropping to one knee and drawing her weapon in a single fluid motion. She fired 3 precisely aimed shots toward the tree line where the sniper was positioned. Providing covering fire as Harrington reached the helicopter. She backed toward the aircraft, maintaining suppressive fire until she could duck behind its armored frame. Harrington had already scrambled into the co-pilot's seat, clutching the evidence to his chest, his breathing ragged. "We can't leave Sullivan," he gasped as Alex pulled herself into the pilot's seat. "We're not." She initiated the startup sequence with practiced efficiency, the engines roaring to life. "Secure that evidence and take the controls. I'm going back for him." Harrington stared at her in disbelief. "That's suicide. Blackwood's team will be focused on the helicopter." Alex handed him the cyclic control. "Keep it running and be ready for immediate takeoff. If I'm not back with Sullivan in 15 minutes, or if the situation becomes untenable, you get that evidence to safety. Clear?" He swallowed hard but nodded. "There's something else you should know about Sullivan. Save it. Time's critical." Alex checked her weapon and grabbed a tactical vest from the emergency kit. 15 minutes, then you go, with or without us." She slipped out of the helicopter, using its bulk as cover before darting into the tree line. The forest swallowed her as she moved with the measured pace of someone balancing speed against stealth. Each step was deliberate, her senses hyper-alert for any sign of hostiles. The distant sound of the helicopter's idling engines faded as she pushed deeper into the woods, navigating back toward the cabin by instinct and the trail of disturbed vegetation. From their earlier passage, her mind calculated angles, sight lines, approach vectors, all the tactical considerations that had once been as natural as breathing during her military service. 5 minutes into her return journey, she caught the acrid scent of smoke, cresting. A small rise, she saw the cabin, or what remained of it. Flames engulfed the structure, black smoke billowing into the clear mountain sky. 2 bodies in tactical gear lay sprawled on the ground near the front entrance. Of Sullivan, there was no sign. Alex approached cautiously, weapon ready, scanning for movement. The cabin was fully involved, the heat intense even from 20 meters away. The bodies belonged to Blackwood's operatives, one with a clean shot through the center mass, the other with multiple wounds. Sullivan had put up one hell of a fight, but where was he now? A faint noise from behind a fallen log caught her attention, a scrape of fabric against bark, barely audible over the crackling flames. Alex circled wide, approaching from an oblique angle that offered both cover and a clear field of fire. Sullivan sat with his back against the log, one hand pressed to his side where blood seeped through his fingers. His rifle lay across his lap, and his eyes tracked her approach with the alertness of a wounded predator. "I told you to get to the helicopter," he said, voice tight with pain, "and I decided that was a stupid order." Alex knelt beside him, quickly assessing his injury. "Gunshot wound, through and through. You're lucky." "Doesn't feel lucky." The ghost of a smile touched his lips before fading. Blackwood wasn't here, but his team had orders to retrieve Harrington and eliminate anyone else. Well, they failed. Spectacularly. Alex helped him to his feet, supporting his weight against her shoulder. "Harrington's at the helicopter with the evidence. We need to move before reinforcements arrive." Sullivan nodded, grimacing as they began the slow journey back through the forest. Each step clearly caused him pain, but he moved with the determined discipline of someone accustomed to operating while injured. "Why did you come back?" he asked after several minutes of labored progress. Alex kept her eyes on the path ahead. "You saved my company. Seemed like the least I could do. Most CEOs would have prioritized the evidence over a single operative. I'm not most CEOs." She adjusted her grip to better support his weight. "And you're not just any operative." They continued in silence for a while, the only sounds being their footsteps on the forest floor and Sullivan's controlled breathing as he managed his pain. "Harrington said there was something I should know about you," Alex finally said. "Something important." Sullivan's stride faltered slightly. "Did he now?" "No time to share the details. Care to fill me in?" He was quiet for several steps, seemingly weighing his response. "I wasn't just tracking Quantum Bridge because it was the right thing to do. I was tracking it because I helped create it." Alex nearly missed a step. "You what?" "Before Afghanistan. Before the IED, I was part of the original NSA team that developed the concept. A backdoor master key that could be embedded in any encryption system, invisible even to the developers." His voice carried the weight of old regrets. "It was supposed to be for national security, strictly limited, court-supervised, used only against legitimate foreign threats." "But Blackwood had other ideas," Sullivan nodded grimly. "After I was injured and pushed into a desk role, I discovered he'd expanded the program far beyond its original mandate. Corporate espionage, political leverage, personal enrichment, Quantum Bridge had become a private power tool for whoever had the right connections and enough money. So you tried to shut it down." "I tried to report it through proper channels first. That's when my boating accident was arranged." His eyes met hers briefly. "I barely escaped with my life. Been hunting Quantum Bridge ever since, trying to gather enough evidence to bring the whole thing crashing down." They reached the edge of the clearing where the helicopter waited, rotors still turning, Harrington visible in the cockpit, scanning the trees anxiously. "That's why you recognize the attack signature in my system," Alex realized. "You wrote the original code." "And that's why I know exactly how to dismantle it," Sullivan confirmed. "Permanently." A bullet whizzed past them, thudding into a tree trunk inches from Alex's head. They dropped instinctively, Sullivan hissing in pain as the impact jarred his wound. "One more of Blackwood's team," he muttered, scanning the tree line. "The cleanup specialist. They always hold one back to verify the mission." Alex raised her weapon, trying to locate the shooter. "We're exposed here. We need to make a run for the helicopter." "You go. I'll provide covering fire." "Not happening." "We move together on my mark." Her tone brooked no argument. 3, 2, 1 now." They broke from cover simultaneously, Alex half dragging Sullivan across the open ground as bullets kicked up dirt around them. The helicopter's side door slid open, Harrington providing suppressive fire with Alex's spare weapon. His shots wild but distracting. 20 meters. 10. 5. They reached the helicopter, Sullivan collapsing into the rear compartment as Alex vaulted into the pilot's seat. Harrington continued firing toward the trees as she engaged the throttle, the aircraft lifting shakily under her urgent commands. "Hang on!" she shouted over the roar of the engines, banking the helicopter sharply as bullets pinged off its armored underbelly. The sudden movement threw Harrington back into his seat and sent Sullivan sliding across the rear compartment with a muffled grunt of pain. The helicopter climbed rapidly, Alex pushing it to its performance limits as they accelerated away from the clearing. Only when they had put several miles between themselves and the cabin did she ease back on the controls, allowing the aircraft to level out at a more sustainable cruising altitude. "Status?" she called over her shoulder. "I'll live," Sullivan replied, his voice strained but steady. "The evidence?" Harrington patted the secure case beside him. "Intact. Everything we need to expose Quantum Bridge and Blackwood's operation." "Where?" "Still not in the clear," Alex cautioned, checking the radar for any sign of pursuit. "Blackwood will have contingencies. And we have less than 2 hours before the Dodd representatives arrive at Meridian." Sullivan pulled himself into a sitting position, his face pale but determined. "Then let's make them count. Because we're not just fighting for your company anymore, Ms. Reeves." "No," she agreed, setting course for Seattle with grim resolve. "We're fighting for everyone who's ever trusted a secure system. And we're going to win." The Meridian Technologies helipad thronged with activity as Alex brought the helicopter in for a precision landing. Marcus Chun waited at the edge of the marked circle, flanked by 2 members of Meridian's internal security team, both former military, their postures alert and weapons discreetly visible beneath tailored jackets. Alex powered down the rotors while Harrington helped Sullivan from the rear compartment, supporting the wounded man's weight. Blood had soaked through the makeshift bandage on Sullivan's side, but his eyes remained clear and focused, the pain compartmentalized through years of training and discipline. "Medical team standing by," Marcus called over the diminishing whine of the engines. His eyes widened at the sight of Harrington. "Sir, you're under my protection," Alex cut in sharply as she exited the aircraft. "The situation has evolved. Marcus, Mr. Harrington was being coerced. He's now a cooperative witness." Marcus absorbed this with the adaptability of a seasoned executive. "And him?" He gestured toward Sullivan, taking in the blood-soaked clothing and military bearing that no janitor's uniform could fully disguise. "The only reason we still have a company," Alex replied. "He needs medical attention immediately, but discreetly. No records, no questions. The conference room on 52 has been converted to a secure command center as you requested," Marcus reported as they moved toward the rooftop access door. "Dr. Navarro is waiting there. She's worked with our security team before. Complete confidentiality." Alex nodded her approval. Marcus had always been her most reliable lieutenant, anticipating needs before they were articulated. The Dodd delegation, arriving in 90 minutes. Director Williams called personally to confirm. "And our internal investigation of the system breach?" Marcus lowered his voice as they entered the elevator. "Preliminary results are concerning. The back doors are sophisticated military-grade architecture embedded at the kernel level. Whoever placed them had intimate knowledge of our proprietary systems." "They had help from the inside," Harrington interjected, his face drawn with exhaustion and guilt. "Blackwood's people provided the architecture, but I implemented it." He clutched the hard drive containing the evidence. "Everything you need to understand the full scope is here." The elevator descended smoothly to the 52nd floor, a level that officially didn't exist in Meridian's public building plans. The doors opened to reveal a space designed for crisis management, reinforced walls, Communication systems independent from the main building infrastructure, and workstations equipped with advanced security tools. Dr. Navarro, a compact woman, with steel gray hair and the efficient movements of someone who had treated wounds in combat, Zones immediately approached Sullivan, directing him to a medical station set up in the corner. "Sit," she commanded, already cutting away his blood-soaked shirt. "Gunshot wound?" "Through and through," Sullivan confirmed, wincing as she probed the injury. "No major organs, but I've lost some blood." "I'll be the judge of what's major," she replied, reaching for an IV kit. "You're lucky. 2 centimeters to the left, and we'd be having a different conversation." While Dr. Navarro worked on Sullivan, Alex gathered the others around the central table. The digital countdown on the wall displayed the time remaining until the DOD delegation's arrival, 87 minutes and counting. "We have limited time and need absolute focus," she began, her voice carrying the calm authority that had built Meridian from the ground up. "James, I need you working with Marcus to isolate and document every backdoor in our system." Sullivan's containment protocol is holding for now, but we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. Harrington nodded, connecting the hard drive to one of the secure terminals. "The quantum bridge architecture uses a nested shell approach backdoors, hidden within legitimate security features. I can identify all the insertion points, but completely removing them before the DOT arrives will be impossible." "We don't need to remove them yet," Alex replied. "We just need irrefutable proof that they exist and were placed without Meridian's knowledge or consent." She turned to Marcus. "I need a complete dossier on Thomas Blackwood official history, known associates, current whereabouts if possible. Focus on his connections to tessellate defense systems and any communication with our Pentagon contacts." "Already underway," Marcus confirmed. "Preliminary data suggests Blackwood maintains a network of former intelligence operatives now working in the private sector. Many have connections to defense contractors competing with Meridian for government contracts." "Follow the money," Sullivan called from the medical station, his voice steady despite Dr. Navarro's ministrations. "Blackwood operates through a series of shell companies. Sovereign Strategic Solutions is his primary front, but he rotates through dozens of others." Alex nodded, impressed despite the circumstances. Sullivan had clearly done his homework during his time as Meridian's unassuming janitor. "What about Williams?" she asked. "Can we trust the DOD director, or is he compromised as well?" Sullivan considered this as Dr. Navarro finished bandaging his side. "Williams isn't directly involved with Quantum Bridge as far as I can tell. He's old-school military values chain of command and protocol. If we present him with irrefutable evidence, he'll be obligated to act. Or he'll bury it deeper to protect the Pentagon's interests," Harrington countered darkly. "That's why we need insurance." Alex moved to the central display, bringing up building schematics. "We're not just preparing a presentation for Williams. We're preparing a complete evidence package that goes to multiple recipients simultaneously. If anything happens to us." Sullivan nodded approvingly, pulling a clean shirt from the emergency kit Dr. Navarro offered him. "Dead man switch protocol. Smart. I didn't build a billion-dollar security company by being naive about human nature," Alex replied. "Now, let's get to work. We have," she checked the countdown, 84 minutes to save Meridian and expose a national security conspiracy." The team dispersed to their assigned tasks with the focused efficiency of professionals accustomed to high-stakes situations. Alex remained at the central console, reviewing the building's security protocols and making necessary adjustments. Blackwood wouldn't give up easily, especially with exposure imminent. He'd have contingency plans, possibly including assets already inside Meridian. Sullivan approached her, moving carefully to accommodate his injury, but otherwise showing remarkable resilience. "Your security chief was right about one thing," he said quietly. "We can't remove all the backdoors before Williams arrives." "We don't need to," Alex replied without looking up from her work. We just need to convince him we were victims, not perpetrators. And if he's working with Blackwood? Alex finally turned to face him. Then we implement Protocol Ares. Sullivan's eyebrows rose slightly. The nuclear option. You'd really burn it all down, if necessary. Her eyes were cold, determined. I built Meridian on a promise of uncompromisable security. If that promise has been fundamentally broken, then the company, as it exists, has already failed. He studied her with newfound respect. Most people in your position would look for ways to cover it up, preserve their reputation and stock price. I'm not most people, Sullivan. She returned to her work. And neither are you. A janitor who can hack military-grade encryption and engage multiple hostiles while wounded. I'm guessing your story goes deeper than your redacted service record suggests. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Let's focus on surviving the next hour. If we're still breathing afterward, maybe I'll tell you about Damascus. I'll hold you to that. She pulled up the security camera feeds, scanning for anything unusual. In the meantime, I need you to help me prepare for Williams. You understand how Blackwood thinks, how Quantum Bridge operates. I need to know what counters they might have ready. Sullivan nodded, settling into the chair beside her with a slight grimace. Blackwood operates on multiple levels simultaneously. He'll have technical countermeasures probably. A kill switch for the backdoors that would destroy evidence if tampering is detected. But his real weapons are political and bureaucratic. Meaning? He'll have prepared official cover classified directives, national security letters, legal opinions justifying the backdoors as necessary for counter-terrorism or critical infrastructure protection. Sullivan's expression hardened. He's had years to build his paper shield. When confronted, he'll wrap himself in the flag and classification protocols. Then we need to make this bigger than classification can contain, Alex mused. Not just about Meridian, but about the fundamental breach of trust in all secure systems. Exactly. Quantum Bridge isn't just about your company. It's about whether any system can truly be secure when the government itself is the attacker. Sullivan leaned forward, wincing slightly. That's the narrative that Blackwood can't control. The idea that America's own security agencies have become the greatest threat to American cybersecurity. Alex's communicator chimed with a message from Marcus. Initial analysis complete. Evidence confirms backdoors in all major Meridian systems, plus something unexpected: similar code signatures in competitors' products. Quantum Bridge appears to be industry-wide. Just as I suspected, Sullivan murmured. Blackwood didn't target Meridian specifically. Your company is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Alex's mind raced with implications. If Quantum Bridge has compromised every major security system, then nothing is secure. Banking, power grids, communications, defense networks, all potentially accessible to whoever controls the master keys. Sullivan's voice was grim. And given what Harrington found about Blackwood selling access, those keys may already be in multiple hands. A cold certainty settled over Alex. This wasn't just about saving her company anymore. It was about exposing a fundamental threat to national security itself. The countdown timer blinked. 58 minutes remaining. We need to accelerate the timeline, she decided, rising from her chair. Marcus, prepare the evidence packages for immediate distribution to our secure contacts. James, finalize the technical documentation of the back doors. Sullivan, she turned to find him already standing, anticipating her needs. I'll prepare for Williams, he said, his expression resolute. And for Blackwood's inevitable countermove. Alex nodded, the weight of the situation evident in the tension around her eyes, but her voice remained steady. Whatever happens in the next hour changes everything, not just for Meridian, but for the entire concept of digital security. That's why Blackwood will fight with everything he has, Sullivan warned. We're not just threatening his operation. We're threatening the power structure he's built over decades. Good. Alex's eyes flashed with determined intensity. It's about time someone did. The executive boardroom on Meridian's 60th floor gleamed with understated luxury polished mahogany, subtle recessed lighting, and floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a panoramic view of Seattle's skyline. But the atmosphere inside crackled with tension that no elegant surroundings could disguise. Alex stood at the head of the table, immaculate in a fresh charcoal suit, all traces of the morning's wilderness confrontation erased from her appearance. Only the tightness around her eyes betrayed the pressure of the moment. Opposite her sat Director Williams, flanked by two Pentagon officials with the rigid posture and watchful eyes of career military men. I appreciate you accommodating this pre-signing briefing, Director. Alex began, her voice measured and professional. Before we formalize our partnership, there are security concerns that require your immediate attention. Williams, silver-haired, distinguished, with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to wielding significant power, nodded politely. Of course, Ms. Reeves, though I must say, the timing is unusual. The matters at hand are equally unusual. Alex activated the room's display system with a subtle gesture. The central screen illuminated with complex diagrams of Meridian's quantum encryption architecture. Early this morning, we discovered unauthorized modifications to our core security systems, specifically sophisticated backdoors designed to grant covert access to encrypted data. Williams's expression remained carefully neutral, but a slight tightening of his jaw betrayed his reaction. That's a serious allegation. I assume you have evidence. Comprehensive evidence. Alex nodded to Marcus, who distributed secure tablets to each Pentagon representative. These backdoors bear the unmistakable signature of a classified program called Quantum Bridge. The name hung in the air like a thunderclap. One of Williams's aides shifted uncomfortably, while Williams himself maintained his composure with practiced skill. I'm not familiar with any such program, he replied smoothly. And these technical schematics, while impressive, don't establish government involvement. The boardroom door opened silently. Sullivan entered, no longer the unassuming janitor, but a man transformed. He wore a tailored suit that concealed his injury, his posture straight, eyes clear and focused. The Pentagon aide stiffened, one reaching instinctively toward his side before catching himself. Perhaps I can help establish that connection, Director, Sullivan said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had once moved in the same classified corridors as these men. As the former NS, a deputy director for special access programs, specifically the architect of Quantum Bridge, before my retirement, Williams's careful mask slipped momentarily. Michael Sullivan, you're supposed to be dead. A common misconception. Sullivan replied mildly, taking a seat beside Alex. One that served certain interests within the intelligence community. This man has no security clearance for this discussion, one of the aides interjected sharply. Director, we should terminate this meeting immediately. Williams raised a hand, silencing his subordinate without taking his eyes off Sullivan. Let's hear what Mr. Sullivan has to say. It seems he's gone to extraordinary lengths to say it. Alex controlled her surprise at learning Sullivan's former rank higher than he had previously indicated. The layers of this man's past were peeling away, revealing someone who had once operated at the highest levels of national security. Sullivan activated his tablet, sending additional data to the main display. Quantum Bridge began as a legitimate national security initiative, a carefully controlled capability to access encrypted systems when authorized by proper legal channels. His voice carried the weight of personal knowledge. But under Thomas Blackwood's direction, it evolved into something far more dangerous, a privatized backdoor network sold to the highest bidders, including foreign intelligence services and criminal organizations. Williams's expression darkened. These are extremely serious allegations. With extremely serious evidence, Alex interjected. bringing up the next screen: financial transactions, linking shell companies to offshore accounts. Blackwood has been selling access to compromised systems, including those used by critical infrastructure, defense contractors, and financial institutions. Even if what you're saying is true, Williams countered, exposing these vulnerabilities presents a grave national security risk. The greater risk is leaving them unexposed, Sullivan replied, because Blackwood isn't the only one exploiting them anymore. The tension in the room thickened as the implications settled over the Pentagon officials. Williams studied the evidence displays, his expression unreadable. "You realize," he finally said, "that by bringing this to me, you've placed yourselves in significant danger. If Blackwood's operation is as extensive as you claim, he won't simply allow you to dismantle it." "We're counting on that," Alex said calmly. "In fact, we're expecting him to make his move very soon." As if summoned by her words, the building security system chimed softly. Marcus checked his tablet, his expression grim. "Thomas Blackwood has just entered the lobby," he announced. "He's requesting an immediate meeting with Director Williams, citing a national security emergency." The boardroom fell silent as the implications of Blackwood's arrival registered with everyone present. Williams's expression hardened, his eyes moving between Alex and Sullivan with renewed calculation. "You anticipated this," he observed, "not a question but a realization." "Blackwood doesn't leave loose ends," Sullivan replied. "When he learned we'd scheduled this meeting, he would have assumed the worst, that we were exposing Quantum Bridge. His only play is to invoke national security protocols and attempt to classify everything we've shown you." Alex leaned forward, her gaze locked with Williams's. "The question, Director, is whether you're part of his operation or someone he's been deceiving all along." Williams straightened, affronted. "I've served this country for 37 years. Ms. Reeves, if what you're alleging is true, Blackwood has betrayed not just his oath, but the fundamental principles of the agencies we serve." "Then prove it," she challenged. "Let Blackwood come up. Let him make his case. But remember that everything he says will be measured against the evidence we've already provided." Williams considered this, then nodded to one of his aides. "Have security escort Mr. Blackwood to this floor. Standard protocols, no weapons, full screening." As the aide stepped out to relay the instructions, Sullivan moved closer to Alex. "This is risky," he murmured, his voice pitched for her ears only. "Blackwood is dangerous not because he's violent, but because he's legitimate, backed by layers of classification and national security directives. Which is exactly why we need to confront him with witnesses present," she replied quietly. "This isn't just about Meridian anymore." The minutes stretched with uncomfortable tension. Marcus continued monitoring building security through his tablet, while Harrington remained stationed in the secure command center below, ready to implement contingency measures if necessary. Finally, the boardroom door opened. Thomas Blackwood entered with the confident stride of someone accustomed to commanding any room he occupied. Tall, impeccably dressed in a navy suit that screamed government efficiency rather than corporate luxury, with close-cropped silver hair and penetrating eyes that missed nothing. He carried a slim leather portfolio bearing subtle security markings. He faltered almost imperceptibly when he spotted Sullivan, a micro-expression of shock quickly masked behind professional composure. "Michael," he said, his voice betraying neither surprise nor concern. "Reports of your demise were apparently exaggerated." "Deliberately so," Sullivan replied evenly. "As you well know, Thomas." Blackwood turned to Williams, seamlessly pivoting to his prepared agenda. "Director, I apologize for the interruption, but I've been authorized at the highest levels to brief you on a security matter of extreme urgency." He placed his portfolio on the table. "We have credible intelligence that Meridian Technologies has been compromised by a sophisticated foreign operation." Williams's expression remained neutral. "That's interesting timing. Considering Ms. Reeves has just presented evidence that Meridian was compromised by Quantum Bridge, a classified program under your direction. If Blackwood was thrown by this revelation, he recovered masterfully. Quantum Bridge is a vital national security asset, operating under presidential findings and congressional oversight. He opened his portfolio, removing several documents bearing classification markings. These authorize the integration of secure access protocols into critical infrastructure systems, including those developed by private contractors like Meridian. You mean backdoors? Alex stated flatly. I mean legitimate security measures designed to protect American interests, Blackwood countered smoothly. Ms. Reeves, the documents before you authorize these measures and classify all related information at the highest levels. By discussing them in this setting, you may already be in violation of federal law. Sullivan leaned forward. Show them the rest, Thomas. The financial transfers through Sovereign Strategic Solutions. The access sold to foreign entities. The private arrangements with Meridian's competitors. Blackwood's eyes narrowed fractionally. These are baseless allegations from a former employee who suffered a psychological break after combat trauma. Michael was a valuable asset once, but his judgment has been compromised for years. We have the evidence, Alex interjected, bringing up new displays on the main screen: transaction records, communication logs, access timestamps, all documenting the unauthorized exploitation of Quantum Bridge backdoors. Your classified program exceeded its mandate. You've been selling access to compromised systems for personal profit, compromising the very national security you claim to protect. Blackwood's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Director Williams, this meeting is now classified. All civilian personnel should be removed, and all electronic devices secured. I don't think so, Williams replied, studying the evidence before him with growing concern. These allegations warrant immediate investigation. With respect, Director, you don't have the authority to make that determination. Blackwood's voice hardened. Quantum Bridge operates under special access protocols that supersede standard Pentagon authorities. Unless those protocols were violated, Sullivan countered, sliding a final document across the table, a presidential directive with yesterday's date. Signed by the Commander-in-Chief after receiving a preliminary evidence package yesterday morning. Full investigation of Quantum Bridge, suspension of all related operations, and immediate disclosure of all compromised systems. Blackwood stared at the document, genuine shock finally breaking through his carefully maintained facade. This is impossible. The White House wouldn't. They would when presented with evidence that America's digital infrastructure has been sold to the highest bidder, Sullivan interrupted. Game over, Thomas. Blackwood's hand moved toward his jacket pocket with practiced smoothness. Williams tensed, but before anyone could react, the boardroom doors opened again. 2 federal agents in dark suits entered, their credentials displayed. Thomas. Blackwood, one announced formally. You're being detained under the authority of the National Security Division for questioning regarding unauthorized disclosure of classified materials and potential violations of the Espionage Act. As the agents approached, Blackwood's calculating gaze shifted from Williams to Sullivan to Alex, assessing options, looking for leverage, finding none. The careful empire he had constructed over decades was collapsing around him in minutes. You have no idea what you've done, he said quietly to Sullivan. Some doors are better left accessible. Not when you're selling the keys, Sullivan replied as the agents led Blackwood from the room. The aftermath unfolded with the controlled chaos of a high-level security incident. Federal agents secured the building. Technicians descended on Meridians. Systems and encrypted communications flew between Washington agencies at unprecedented volume. From her office overlooking the Seattle skyline, Alex watched the activity with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. The immediate danger had passed, but the repercussions were just beginning. A soft knock at her door broke her reverie. Sullivan entered, still in the suit that transformed him from invisible maintenance worker to the commanding presence that had faced down Blackwood. The events of the past 24 hours had forged an unspoken connection between them, a shared understanding that transcended conventional professional relationships. Director Williams just left, Sullivan reported, closing the door behind him. The Pentagon is initiating a comprehensive security review of all systems potentially compromised by Quantum Bridge. It'll take months, possibly years, to fully assess the damage. Alex nodded, turning from the window. And Meridian's government contracts? Suspended pending investigation, but Williams made it clear that's just procedural. Your company's cooperation and Harrington's testimony have positioned Meridian as a victim rather than an accomplice. Sullivan moved further into the room, his military bearing softened by fatigue and the lingering effects of his injury. Once the back doors are removed and systems recertified, you'll likely be in an even stronger position. The company that helped expose the largest security breach in digital history. Small consolation for the damage to global cybersecurity, Alex replied, pouring 2 glasses of scotch from the crystal decanter on her desk. She offered one to Sullivan, who accepted with a subtle nod of thanks. The damage was done long before. Today, he said, taking a measured sip. At least now there's a chance to repair it. Blackwood's operation thrived in secrecy. Exposing it was the only way to begin fixing what he broke. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, the weight of the day settling around them like a heavy cloak. Deputy Director for Special Access Programs, Alex finally said. You neglected to mention that particular detail when you were mopping the server room floor. A ghost of a smile touched Sullivan's lips. Didn't seem relevant at the time. And Damascus? That's still classified, I'm afraid. Though perhaps less relevant than it once was. He set his glass down, his expression growing more serious. Blackwood was right about one thing. I did suffer after Afghanistan. Not a psychological break, but a crisis of purpose. When I discovered what he'd done with Quantum Bridge, how he'd corrupted something I helped create, it gave me a new mission. Something to make amends for the damage I'd unwittingly enabled. Alex studied him with new understanding. So you became the gray man again, invisible, moving through corporate America's most secure facilities, hunting for Blackwood's backdoors. Janitors, maintenance workers, cleaning staff were the perfect infiltrators. Everyone sees the uniform, not the person wearing it. Sullivan met her gaze directly. Until someone finally does. The unspoken acknowledgement hung between them that she had seen him when others hadn't, had trusted him despite every logical reason not to. What happens now? She asked. With Blackwood in custody and Quantum Bridge exposed, your mission is complete. Sullivan glanced out at the Seattle skyline, considering. That chapter is closed, but the broader work isn't finished. Blackwood created a template that others will try to replicate. The fundamental tension between security and surveillance remains unresolved. Sounds like there's still a need for people who understand both sides of that equation, Alex observed. People who can build secure systems while anticipating how others might try to compromise them. Are you offering me a job, Ms. Reeves? There was a hint of amusement in his voice, but his eyes were serious, questioning. Meridian will need to rebuild its security architecture from the ground up. We'll need someone who understands the threats. At the highest level, she met his gaze steadily. Not as a janitor this time. As our new chief security officer, reporting directly to me. Sullivan raised an eyebrow. From mopping floors to the executive suite. That's quite a promotion. I value capability over credentials, Sullivan. Always have. She gestured toward the window, toward the city beyond. What you did yesterday containing the breach, protecting our systems, facing down Blackwood, showed me exactly what you're capable of. Meridian needs that expertise now more than ever. He was silent for a moment, weighing her offer against possibilities only he could see. I've spent 3 years in the shadows, Alexandra. I'm not sure I remember how to live in the light. Then perhaps it's time to relearn. She stepped closer, close enough that the professional distance between CEO and potential executive narrowed to something more personal. The world is about to become a lot more complicated. Systems once thought impenetrable have been exposed as vulnerable. Trust in digital security will need to be rebuilt from first principles. And you think I'm the man to help do that? His voice held a trace of the weariness that comes from carrying a burden alone for too long. I know you are. Her certainty was absolute, her gaze unwavering. The question is whether you're ready to stop hiding in plain sight. Sullivan looked down at his hands that had typed code that shaped national security, that had fought to protect his country, that had pushed a janitor's mop to conceal his true purpose. When he looked up again, something had shifted in his eyes, a decision reached. On one condition, he said. We build something better than what came before. Not just secure against the threats we know, but designed with transparency and accountability at its core. Alex extended her hand, a gesture both professional and deeply personal. Deal. Sullivan took it, his grip firm, the connection between them cementing something that had begun in crisis and might now evolve into partnership. Welcome to Meridian, Mr. Sullivan, this time through the front door. 1 year later, the Seattle skyline glittered under a crisp autumn sunset, the last golden rays casting long shadows across the renovated lobby of Meridian Technologies. The space had been transformed, no longer the cold, sterile monument to corporate power it once was, but a more thoughtful environment where security and humanity coexisted in careful balance. A wall of honor near the entrance displayed the names of the technical team that had helped rebuild Meridian systems from the ground up. James Harrington's name appeared prominently, his testimony against Blackwood and subsequent cooperation had earned him immunity and a chance at redemption. He now headed Meridian's Vulnerability Assessment Division, his intimate knowledge of Quantum Bridge making him uniquely qualified to hunt for similar threats. On the executive floor, the quarterly board meeting had just concluded. The mood was cautiously optimistic. Meridian stock had recovered from the initial shock of the Quantum Bridge revelations, and new contracts were flowing in from organizations that valued the company's hard-won expertise in truly secure systems. In her office, Alex reviewed the final preparations for tomorrow's Security Summit, the first public gathering of technology leaders, government officials, and privacy advocates to establish new standards for digital security in a post-Quantum Bridge world. The event represented everything she had fought for over the past year: transparency, accountability, and a fundamental rethinking of what secure truly meant. Soft chime announced an incoming message on her private channel. It was from Sullivan, requesting her presence in the Advanced Projects Lab on the 44th floor. She smiled slightly still, not entirely accustomed to the way their professional relationship had evolved over the months of intense collaboration. Lab was Sullivan's domain, a space where Meridian's most innovative security concepts took shape. As she entered, she found him standing before a holographic display showing a complex, three-dimensional model of what appeared to be an entirely new encryption architecture. "You wanted to see me?" she asked, taking in the focused intensity of his expression, the same look he'd worn when saving their systems that first night, though now unobscured by the janitor's disguise he'd worn for so long. Sullivan turned, his face relaxing into a smile that had become less rare over the past year. "We've finished the prototype. Quantum security without centralized access points, distributed trust architecture with no master keys, not even for us." Alex approached the display, studying the elegant complexity of the design, the antithesis of Quantum Bridge. That was the goal. Security that protects everyone equally: users, companies, even governments, without privileged access for anyone. Pride tinged his voice, but tempered with the humility of someone who had seen how even the best intentions could be corrupted. Alex reached out, rotating the holographic model to examine it from different angles. Will it work? In theory, it's unbreakable. In practice, ... He shrugged slightly. Everything can be broken, given enough time and resources, but this raises the cost exponentially. No more easy backdoors, no more secret master keys. Blackwood would hate it, she observed with grim satisfaction. That's how I know we're on the right track. Sullivan deactivated the display, turning to face her fully. The summit tomorrow, are you ready? As ready as anyone can be to tell the world that digital security, as they've understood, it has been fundamentally compromised for years. She sighed, the weight of responsibility momentarily visible in her posture. But they deserve the truth and a path forward. Sullivan studied her with the perceptive gaze that had once assessed security vulnerabilities and now often seemed to see through her carefully maintained professional facade. You've changed this past year. We all have. She met his gaze steadily. Hard not to, after what we uncovered. True, but most people would have found a way to protect themselves, their company, their reputation, even at the expense of the larger truth. He gestured toward the darkening city beyond the windows. Instead, you chose to rebuild something better, knowing it meant admitting the old foundations were flawed. The compliment carried particular weight coming from him, a man who had sacrificed his career, risked his life, and spent years in self-imposed exile to expose a corruption few would ever have discovered. We make a good team, Sullivan, she said simply. He nodded, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. From janitor and CEO to whatever this is now. The unspoken complexity of their relationship hung between them, professional respect, deepened by shared danger, mutual trust forged in crisis, and something more personal that neither had fully acknowledged. I never properly thanked you, Alex said suddenly, for saving Meridian that night, for seeing what needed to be done when everyone else was paralyzed. You thanked me with a corner office and an executive title, he replied with dry humor. More than adequate compensation for a few lines of code. That's not what I mean, and you know it. Her voice softened. You could have remained invisible. Instead, you chose to step into the light. Sullivan's expression grew thoughtful. Sometimes the most important work happens in the shadows, but lasting change, that requires stepping into view, standing behind your convictions. He looked toward the holographic projector where their new security architecture had been displayed moments before. Tomorrow we take another step. Together, Alex agreed, the word carrying implications beyond their professional collaboration. Outside, darkness settled over Seattle as lights bloomed across the cityscape, thousands of interconnected systems continuing to function, vulnerable yet resilient, much like the people who built them. As moonlight spilled across the Seattle skyline, Sullivan and Alex stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of Meridian's executive floor. The city spread below them like a glittering digital constellation, each light representing lives and systems their work now helped protect. To think it all started with a system crash and a janitor with an unusual skill set. Alex mused, the memory of that night still vivid despite the passing year. Sullivan's reflection in the glass showed a man transformed, no longer hiding in plain sight, but standing tall in his true identity. Sometimes the most qualified person isn't the one with the fanciest title or the corner office. Just the one with the courage to step forward when everything is falling apart. Alex finished, her hand finding his in the darkness. In the server room 40 floors below, a plaque now hung beside the auxiliary terminal where Sullivan had first saved Meridian systems. Its simple inscription read, "Remember that excellence wears many uniforms." The next morning, as they prepared to take the stage together at the Global Security Summit, Sullivan paused at the entrance to the auditorium. Ready to change the world? Alex nodded. One secure system at a time. The lights dimmed as they walked. Onto the stage, united in purpose, their unlikely journey from CEO and janitor to partners in rebuilding digital trust about to inspire a new chapter in global cybersecurity. Thank you for joining us for another Soul Stories exclusive. This tale reminds us that true value isn't always found where we expect it. Sometimes it's hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone wise enough to recognize it. Has someone in your life ever surprised you by revealing hidden depths or unexpected talents? Share your experiences in the comments below. If you found meaning in this story of identity, trust, and redemption. Please subscribe to our channel for more narratives that touch the heart and challenge the mind. Every week, we bring you original stories that remind us of our shared humanity and the unexpected heroes walking among us. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most extraordinary people are disguised by the most ordinary circumstances.